If you want to rise above the ordinary, you must think beyond it. The mind is your first battlefield. Conquer it, and the world will follow. You were not born to blend in. You were born to command. Every empire begins in the mind of one person, who refuses to think small. The average man waits for orders. The emperor writes them. You must train yourself to think in terms of domination, not survival. Vision, not reaction. Power, not permission. Greatness begins when you see yourself as the architect of destiny, not its victim. Subscribe to our channel if you're ready to master your mind. And tell us, where are you watching from? Listen carefully, for what I am about to tell you has built empires and crushed dynasties. The greatest battle you will ever fight isn't on any physical battlefield. It's in the silent chambers of your mind. I have commanded armies across Europe. But before I ever raised a sword, I mastered the art of commanding my thoughts. You see, every great achievement, every moment of triumph begins as a single thought, a vision that burns brighter than all doubt. Most men live their entire lives never understanding this fundamental truth. The throne begins in the mind. They waste their days reacting to the world around them, letting others write their story, believing that power is something granted rather than seized. But you are different. I see it in your eyes. You have that spark, that same fire. That drove me from a minor noble in Corsica to Emperor of France. The question is, will you let it consume you, forge you, transform you? Every morning when you wake, you must see yourself not as you are, but as you intend to be. This is not mere positive thinking. This is strategic visualization. When I planned my campaigns, I would spend hours alone, mapping every possibility, every outcome, every victory in my mind before a single soldier marched. Your thoughts are your first territory. Govern them with the same iron will you would use to govern nations. Eliminate weak thinking as you would eliminate traitors. Cultivate powerful thoughts as you would cultivate loyal generals. Here's what most don't understand. Greatness isn't stumbled upon. It's deliberately engineered in the mind first. Every palace, every victory arch, every empire began as a thought in someone's mind who refused to think small. When others speak of limitations, you must think of possibilities. When they counsel caution, you must see opportunity. When they preach conformity, you must plan revolution. This is how emperors think. This is how history is written. But let me ask you this. What thoughts currently occupy your mental territory? Are they thoughts of conquest and victory, or are they the mundane musings of a common soldier? Your answer reveals everything about your future. Remember, the size of your achievements will never exceed the size of your thoughts. I did not become emperor by thinking like a lieutenant. You cannot build an empire with the mindset of a peasant. Master your mind, and you master your destiny. Every great victory I achieved was won first in my thoughts, then in reality. This is the way of power. This is the way of emperors. Your mind is your private war room. Enter it daily with purpose. Plan there, strategize there, win there. Then watch as reality bends to match your vision. The world does not give power to those who ask permission. It bows before those who have already crowned themselves in their minds. Now go. Enter the battlefield of your thoughts. Conquer your doubts. Assassinate your limitations. Build your empire first in mind, and I promise you, reality will follow. You want to know why most men fail? They let their emotions command their actions. In battle, in business, in life, emotion is a liability that will destroy you faster than any enemy. I have watched great generals lose decisive battles because they let anger cloud their judgment. I have seen powerful men fall from grace because they let fear drive their decisions. This is why I tell you now, the emperor never reacts, he calculates. Here's what most people don't understand. Emotion is the language of the masses, but strategy is the dialect of kings. When you feel anger rising, that is precisely the moment to become cold, calculating, strategic. When others panic, you must find clarity. When they rush, you must find stillness. I conquered Europe not through passion, but through precision. Every move, every alliance, every battle was a calculated step in a greater strategy. Even my displays of emotion were strategic tools to inspire troops or intimidate opponents. You must learn to view your emotions as data, nothing more. Anger tells you where there's resistance. Fear shows you where preparation is needed. Excitement reveals opportunity. But never, never let these emotions drive your decisions. The amateur responds to insult with immediate rage. The strategist sees an opportunity to observe his opponent's psychological weaknesses. The amateur rushes to defend his ego. The strategist uses the moment to advance his position. But let me ask you this. How often do you let your emotions write checks your strategy can't cash? How many times have you acted in haste, only to spend twice the energy cleaning up the consequences? When I planned the invasion of Italy, I didn't let my eagerness for glory rush my preparations. When facing superior forces, I didn't let fear make me retreat. Strategy ruled every decision, every single one. Your emotions are like weather, changeable, unreliable, often destructive. Your strategy should be like the North Star, constant, reliable, guiding. Learn to navigate by strategy, not by the storms of feeling. This is why I spent countless hours alone, studying maps, analyzing reports, considering every angle. In those moments of solitude, clear from emotional chaos, the best strategies emerge. The difference between a leader and a ruler, between a general and an emperor, is this. The leader might control others, but the ruler has first learned to control himself. Your emotions must serve your strategy, not the other way around. When you face crisis, train yourself to step back. Create distance between the trigger and your response. In that space, strategy blooms. That pause, that moment of calculated thought, this is where empires are won or lost. Remember, your enemies are counting on you to be emotional, to be reactive, to be predictable. Deny them this advantage. Be the cold calculator when they expect the hot-headed fool. Be the patient strategist when they expect the impulsive amateur. This is the way of power, to transform emotional energy into strategic advantage, to use the passion of your heart, but always follow the calculations of your mind. Let me tell you about the most powerful weapon in my arsenal, one that won me more battles than any cannon or cavalry charge. It wasn't my military strategy, though. That was formidable. It wasn't my tactical genius, though that served me well. No, my greatest weapon was my vision, my ability to see what others couldn't even imagine. Here's what most people don't understand. While they're playing checkers, emperors are playing chess. While they see the next step, we see the next campaign. While they think about tomorrow, we think about decades. When I stood on the soil of France as a young artillery officer, I didn't see what was. I saw what could be. I saw an empire waiting to be built. I saw glory waiting to be seized. I saw history waiting to be written. This vision became my compass, my siege weapon, my crown. But let me ask you this. What do you see when you look at your life? Do you see the mundane reality in front of you, or do you see the empire waiting to be built? Your answer determines everything. Vision is not some mystical gift. It's a muscle you must develop through relentless exercise. Every day, I would spend hours studying maps, reading histories, analyzing possibilities. I wasn't just planning, I was training my mind to see beyond the obvious, beyond the immediate. The amateur looks at a mountain and sees an obstacle. The visionary sees a vantage point. The amateur sees problems. The visionary sees future victories waiting to be claimed. This is the difference between those who serve history and those who write it. Your vision must be so clear, so compelling, that it burns away all doubt. When I told my soldiers we would cross the Alps in winter, a feat deemed impossible, my vision was so powerful it made them believe when others saw certain defeat. My vision showed the path to victory. But vision without action is merely dreaming. Your vision must be your general, commanding every decision, every action, every moment. It must be the filter through which you evaluate every opportunity, every alliance, every battle. Most fail because their vision extends only to the next paycheck, the next promotion, the next small victory. But empires aren't built on small thinking. They're built on visions that terrify the average mind with their audacity. You must train yourself to see 10 moves ahead while others struggle to see 2. When they talk about survival, you must think about dominance. When they plan for the year, you must plan for the decade. This is how you transform from a pawn into a king. Your vision is your declaration of war against mediocrity. It's your proclamation to the universe that you refuse to be ordinary. It's your weapon against the small thinking that plagues the masses. Remember, every great achievement in history began as a vision that most deemed impossible. The pyramids, the conquests, the revolutions, all started in the mind of someone who refused to see limits. So, sharpen your vision. Let it become so clear that it keeps you awake at night. Let it become so powerful that it drives you through every obstacle. Let it become so compelling that others can't help but follow. This is how empires are built. This is how legends are born. This is how history remembers your name. Before I commanded armies, before I ruled France, before I made kings tremble, I mastered myself. This is the truth that separates emperors from pretenders. You must build your inner empire before you can build your outer one. Here's what most people don't understand. The greatest battlefield isn't at Austerlitz or Jena. It's in the quiet moments when you face yourself. Every morning when you rise, you are either building your empire or undermining it. There is no middle ground. I did not become emperor by accident. Long before I wore the crown, I crowned myself in my own mind through iron discipline. I would study while others slept, plan while others played, train while others rested. This is the price of greatness, and it must be paid in advance. But let me ask you this. What kind of emperor are you in your private kingdom? Do you rule your habits, or do they rule you? Do you command your time, or does it slip through your fingers like sand through a peasant's hands? The first province you must conquer is your own character. Your discipline must be legendary. Your standards must be ruthless. Your self-control must be absolute. These are not optional virtues. They are the foundation of all power. I built my empire on a foundation of personal excellence. Every victory on the battlefield was first won in my study, in my preparation, in my relentless self-improvement. While others sought comfort, I sought growth. While they sought pleasure, I sought power. Your habits are your soldiers. Your routines are your generals. Your principles are your fortifications. Build them strong, and no external enemy can defeat you. Build them weak, and you've already lost before the battle begins. Most men fail because they try to conquer the world before. They've conquered their own weaknesses. They want to command armies when they cannot command their own desires. They wish to rule nations when they cannot rule their own time. This inner empire requires constant vigilance. Every day, you must inspect your mental troops, strengthen your emotional fortifications, expand your intellectual territories. There can be no rest, no retreat, no surrender in this inner campaign. When I was young, I would practice writing orders in the dark so I could command even when I couldn't see. I would study battle plans until they were burned into my mind. I would rehearse decisions until they became instinct. This is how you build an inner empire. Your mind must become your palace guard, protecting you from weak thoughts. Your will must become your imperial decree, brooking no opposition from lazy habits or empty excuses. Your focus must become your royal treasury, spending time and energy only on what truly matters. Here's the truth that most will never accept. Greatness is not a destination, it's a practice. It's not something you achieve once and keep forever. It must be renewed every day, every hour, every minute through constant self-mastery. Remember, the size of your external empire will never exceed the size of your internal one. If you want to command others, first prove you can command yourself. If you want to conquer nations, first conquer your weaknesses. If you want to write history, first master your own story. This is the way of power. This is the path of emperors. Build your inner empire first, and the outer one will follow. In war, as in life, victory belongs to those who can concentrate superior force at the decisive point. But here's what most people don't understand. The most crucial battlefield for concentration is not physical, it's mental, the art of ruthless. Focus is what separates conquerors from the conquered. I won battles against superior forces because I could concentrate my strength where it mattered most. While my enemies dispersed their attention like scattered troops, I marshaled mine like a precision strike force. This is the power of ruthless focus. Every morning, I would eliminate distractions with the same merciless efficiency I used to eliminate enemy positions. Unnecessary reports? Burned. Trivial meetings? Canceled. Pointless ceremonies? Delegated. I kept only what served the empire's growth. But let me ask you this. How many battles are you fighting right now? How many fronts have you opened? The amateur divides his forces, attacking everything at once. The emperor concentrates his power, destroying one objective at a time. Your focus is your army. Every time you allow it to be divided, you weaken your force. Every time you permit distractions to infiltrate your mind, you suffer a strategic defeat. This is why I say ruthless focus is not just beneficial, it's essential. When I planned the Egyptian campaign, I shut myself away for days, studying every map, every report, every detail. No interruptions were permitted. No diversions were allowed. This total immersion, this absolute focus, is how empires are built and battles are won. Most people treat their attention like a common resource, spending it freely on whatever demands it. This is the thinking of peasants. Your focus is your royal treasury. Guard it jealously, spend it wisely, invest it only in what truly matters. Here's the truth about power. It flows to those who can concentrate their forces, mental, physical, and spiritual, on a single point until breakthrough is achieved. Everything else is just noise, and noise has never won a battle or built an empire. You must learn to burn distractions to the ground with the same ruthlessness you would show to an enemy army threatening your borders. Social media, destroy it. Pointless debates, eliminate them. Activities that don't serve your empire, banish them. When I worked with such intensity that my secretaries would often collapse from exhaustion while I continued. This wasn't just stamina. It was focused power, concentrated effort, ruthless elimination of everything that didn't serve the goal. Your mind must become like a burning glass, focusing the rays of your intellect and energy onto one point until it catches fire. This is how you cut through chaos. This is how you achieve what others call impossible. Remember, the world is full of divided forces, people whose power is scattered across 100 different fronts. Your advantage lies in concentration, in bringing overwhelming force to bear on the single point that matters most. This is the art of ruthless focus, to eliminate the unnecessary so completely that what remains becomes unstoppable. To concentrate your powers so absolutely that no obstacle can resist you, to burn away distractions so thoroughly that only pure purpose remains. In the end, your legacy will be built not on how many things you did, but on how completely you dominated the few things that truly mattered. This is the way of power. This is the path of emperors. In the art of war and in the conquest of destiny, there is one sin that cannot be forgiven: hesitation. I have seen more battles lost to indecision than to inferior numbers, more empires crumbled through hesitation than through hostile action. This is why I tell you now, act decisively or die slowly. Here's what most people don't understand. While you stand frozen in doubt, analyzing every angle, seeking perfect certainty, time, your most precious resource, bleeds away. The emperor moves with speed, certainty, and finality because he knows That hesitation is merely death by another name. When I crossed the Alps in winter, a move my enemies thought impossible, I didn't wait for perfect conditions. When I seized power in France, I didn't wait for universal approval. In the face of uncertainty, the decisive strike is often the safest option. But let me ask you this: how many opportunities have slipped through your fingers while you waited for the right moment? How many victories have you surrendered to those who dared to act, while you dared only to hesitate? The speed of decision-making is often more important than the decision itself. A good plan violently executed today is better than a perfect plan next week. This isn't recklessness. It's the cold calculation that in a world of constant change, speed is power. I won battles not because I made perfect decisions, but because I made decisions perfectly, with clarity, with speed, with absolute commitment. While my enemies debated in their war councils, I was already maneuvering my forces. While they sought consensus, I sought victory. Most people mistake motion for action. They confuse busy work with decisive movement. But true decisive action has these qualities. It is swift, it is final, and it is committed. There is no halfway. There is no retreat. There is only forward. Your decisions must be like cannon fire. Once released, there is no calling them back. This commitment, this finality, this decisiveness becomes a force multiplier. It turns ordinary actions into extraordinary results because the full weight of your will stands behind them. When I decided to crown myself emperor, many thought it madness, but the speed and absoluteness of the action left no room for opposition to organize. This is the power of decisive action. It creates facts on the ground faster than resistance can form. Remember, while you hesitate, your enemies advance. While you deliberate, opportunities vanish. While you wait for perfect conditions, someone else is already seizing the advantage. In the game of power, the decisive win over the doubtful every time. The world bows before those who dare to act. It pays tribute to those who move with certainty. It yields to those who strike with speed and purpose. This is why every moment of hesitation is a moment of death, small deaths that accumulate until they bury your dreams. Your decisions must become your soldiers, trained to deploy at a moment's notice. Your actions must become your artillery, ready to fire without hesitation. Your will must become your cavalry, able to charge forward when opportunity presents itself. This is the way of power, to act with such speed and certainty that doubt itself becomes a distant memory, to move with such decisiveness that hesitation doesn't dare show its face in your empire. The next time opportunity presents itself, remember, emperors don't wait for permission. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They act, they decide, they conquer. The battle is won long before the first shot is fired. This truth has served me well from Toulon to Austerlitz. Victory belongs to the one who prepares while others sleep. The throne room of power is entered through the door of preparation. Here's what most people don't understand. When they see the emperor's triumph, they see only the final move. They don't see the thousands of hours of preparation, the countless scenarios planned, the meticulous attention to detail that made victory inevitable. I spent more time preparing for battles than fighting them. While others boasted in taverns, I studied maps. While they slept, I memorized terrain. While they celebrated small victories, I planned grand campaigns. This is the price of dominance, and few are willing to pay it. But let me ask you this: how deeply do you prepare? Do you train until you cannot fail? Or do you train until you occasionally succeed? The difference between these two approaches is the difference between an emperor and a footnote in history. When I prepared for battle, I would calculate everything: the number of steps my soldiers could march in an hour, the amount of powder each cannon would require, the time it would take for messages to reach each unit. This obsession with detail wasn't paranoia. It was power. Most people prepare until they feel confident. This is weakness. You must prepare until failure becomes impossible, until every scenario has been anticipated, until your responses become instinct. This is how you turn preparation into domination. Your preparation must be like a siege weapon, methodical, relentless, overwhelming. Every detail you master is another brick removed from the wall of resistance. Every scenario you plan for is another weapon in your arsenal. I would drill my artillery crews until they could load and fire their cannons blindfolded. Why? Because in the chaos of battle, excellence must be automatic. Your preparation must be so thorough that excellence becomes your only possible response. Remember this: when the moment of opportunity arrives, it's too late to prepare. The time for building strength is before the battle. The time for sharpening skills is before the test. The time for developing strategy is before the campaign. Your daily preparation is your army. Every book you read, every skill you master, every scenario you plan for, these are your soldiers, your cavalry, your artillery. Deploy them wisely, train them relentlessly, and victory becomes inevitable. Most fail because they wait for opportunity to prepare them. This is the thinking of amateurs. The emperor prepares so thoroughly that he creates opportunities through his preparation. He doesn't wait for the perfect moment. He creates it. In my campaigns, I would spend months preparing for battles that sometimes lasted only hours. This wasn't wasted time. It was investment in dominance. Every hour of preparation was a down payment on victory. Here's the truth about power. It flows to those who eliminate uncertainty through preparation, who transform variables into constants through planning, who turn chaos into order through meticulous attention to detail. Train harder than you fight. Prepare more thoroughly than you execute. Plan more extensively than you act. This is how empires are built. This is how legends are born. This is how history is written. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you one of the most powerful secrets of empire building. Perception is reality. The ability to control the narrative is worth more than 1,000 cannons. In the grand game of power, he who shapes the story shapes the world. Here's what most people don't understand. Battles are won not just on the field, but in the minds of men. When I entered Egypt, I didn't just bring an army, I brought scholars, artists, and writers. Why? Because I knew that victory isn't just about conquering territory, it's about conquering minds. I controlled my image with the same precision I used to control my armies. Every proclamation, every appearance, every gesture was calculated to build the narrative of inevitable victory. This wasn't deception, it was strategic reality crafting. But let me ask you this: who is writing your story? Are you actively shaping how the world sees you, or are you letting others define your narrative? In the game of power, if you're not controlling your story, you're surrendering power to those who will. When I transformed from General Bonaparte to Emperor Napoleon, it wasn't just a change in title, it was a carefully orchestrated transformation of narrative. Every detail, from the way I dressed to the way I spoke, reinforced the story of imperial destiny. Most people let their story happen to them. They accept the narratives others create. This is the behavior of subjects, not emperors. You must become the author of your own legend, the creator of your own myth, the architect of your own story. Your reputation is your empire's flag. Your image is your army's standard. Your narrative is your royal treasury. Guard them, build them, invest in them with the same dedication you would give to any crucial resource of power. I would spend hours crafting bulletins about our victories, knowing that the story of a battle often mattered more than the battle itself. The narrative you create becomes the reality others live in. Master this, and you master the world. Remember, people don't follow facts, they follow stories. They don't pledge allegiance to statistics, they pledge allegiance to narratives. The emperor who understands this can command not just actions, but hearts and minds. Your every action must reinforce your chosen narrative. Your every word must build your legend. Your every appearance must contribute to the story you're creating. This isn't vanity, it's strategy at its highest level. Most fail because they let others define them. They react to narratives instead of creating them. They play defensive with their story instead of offensive. This is the path to obscurity, not power. When I wanted France to see me as a legitimate ruler rather than a military upstart, I didn't just seize power, I created a new narrative of imperial restoration. I connected my story to France's greatest moments, making my rise seem not just inevitable, but necessary. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those who can make others believe in their version of reality, who can transform their personal story into a universal truth, who can make their individual journey seem like destiny. Control your narrative with the same iron discipline you would use to control an empire. Shape your story with the same strategic genius you would use to shape a battlefield. This is how legends are born. This is how history remembers. In the architecture of power, respect, and loyalty are not gifts to be received. They are territories to be conquered. I did not ask my soldiers to follow me. I made myself impossible to ignore. I did not beg for loyalty. I commanded it through actions that left no room for doubt. Here's what most people don't understand. Respect isn't earned through politeness. It's commanded through excellence. Loyalty isn't bought with kindness. It's forged through demonstrated greatness. The masses follow strength, not requests. When I took command of the army of Italy, I didn't ask for respect from generals twice my age. I demonstrated such tactical brilliance that respect became their only logical response. This is the first law of power. Become undeniable. But let me ask you this. Are you still asking for respect when you should be commanding it? Are you still hoping for loyalty when you should be inspiring it? The difference between these approaches is the difference between a leader and an emperor. I slept on the same ground as my soldiers. I learned every officer's name. I shared their hardships and their victories. But make no mistake, this wasn't mere camaraderie. It was strategic excellence that made them willing to follow me into hell itself. Most people think loyalty comes from being liked. This is the thinking of amateurs. True loyalty comes from being respected, and respect comes from consistent demonstration of superior capability. Your excellence must be so routine that it becomes expected. Your every action must scream competence. Your every decision must demonstrate mastery. Your every move must reflect such deep understanding of your domain that questioning your authority becomes unthinkable. When I promoted officers, I didn't choose them based on nobility or connection. I chose them based on merit and courage. This created a loyalty based not on obligation, but on shared excellence, not on tradition, but on demonstrated greatness. Remember, people naturally align themselves with power. They instinctively follow those who demonstrate superior ability. They inevitably pledge loyalty to those who consistently prove themselves worthy of following. Your competence must be your crown. Your excellence must be your scepter. Your consistent superior performance must be your throne. These are what command respect and inspire loyalty. Not words, not titles, not wishes. Most fail because they try to demand respect without first becoming respectable. They try to command loyalty without first becoming commanding. This is like trying to lead an army without first learning strategy. It leads only to defeat. When my soldiers called me the little corporal, it wasn't just affection. It was recognition that I understood their struggles, their capabilities, their potential. I earned their loyalty by proving I could lead them to glory, not by asking for their support. Here's the truth about power. Respect and loyalty are natural responses to demonstrated greatness. They cannot be demanded without substance, cannot be commanded without merit, cannot be expected without excellence. Build yourself into someone worthy of following. Transform yourself into a force that cannot be ignored. Develop yourself into a leader whose competence commands respect and whose excellence inspires loyalty. This is the way of power. This is the path of emperors. The difference between the common general and the emperor lies not in their resources, but in their thinking. The general plans to fight. The emperor plans to win. The general thinks of survival. The emperor thinks of dominance. This is why I tell you now, think not in terms of participation, but in terms of victory. Here's what most people don't understand. When you begin with thoughts of mere survival or adequacy, you've already accepted defeat. Every great conquest, every empire, every revolution began with a mind that refused to consider anything less than total victory. When I planned the Italian campaign, I didn't create contingencies for honorable defeat. I planned only for victory. Each strategy, each maneuver, each position was considered only in terms of how it would contribute to absolute triumph. This is how empires are built. But let me ask you this. When you plan your campaigns, in business, in life, in any arena, do you plan for victory or do you plan to avoid defeat? The difference between these two mindsets is the difference between those who make history and those who merely live in it. Most people enter battles, whether in business, career, or life, hoping to survive. This is weakness. Enter every arena with the sole intention of conquering it. Your mind must be so fixed on victory that defeat becomes literally unthinkable. I would spend hours visualizing victory before every battle. Not just the end result, but every step, every movement, every triumph. This wasn't mere positive thinking. It was strategic visualization that programmed my mind and my armies for nothing less than total success. Your goals must be like imperial decrees, absolute, non-negotiable, brooking no opposition. Your plans must be like military campaigns, comprehensive, strategic, aimed at total domination. Your mindset must be like that of an emperor, focused only on triumph. When I crowned myself emperor, many thought it audacious, but in my mind, I had already won the crown 1,000 times. This is the power of thinking in terms of victory. It makes the impossible seem inevitable, the audacious seem natural. Remember, the size of your victories will never exceed the size of your thinking. If you think in terms of survival, you'll survive barely. If you think in terms of adequacy, you'll be adequate barely. But if you think in terms of victory, you open the door to greatness. Most fail because they let doubt infiltrate their thinking. They create backup plans for failure before they've even begun fighting for success. This divided thinking leads to divided results. The emperor thinks only of victory, and this singular focus becomes a force multiplier. Your mind must become your war room, where only strategies for victory are permitted. Your thoughts must become your generals, trained to think only in terms of conquest. Your plans must become your soldiers, programmed only for triumph. When I faced seemingly impossible odds at Austerlitz, my mind held only one thought: total victory, not survival, not escape, not compromise, only complete and absolute triumph. This clarity of thought transformed into clarity of action, and history records the result. Here's the truth about power. It flows to those who refuse to consider defeat, who plan only for victory, who think so consistently in terms of triumph that success becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Program your mind for victory. Train your thoughts for conquest. Plan only for triumph. This is how empires are built. This is how legends are born. This is how history is written. Let me share with you a truth that most will never understand. Fear is not your enemy. It is your most loyal advisor. The difference between the emperor and the common man lies not in the absence of fear, but in its mastery. I felt fear before every battle, but I made it serve my purpose. Here's what most people don't understand. Fear is energy, raw, powerful, and ready to be harnessed. When others run from it, you must learn to ride it. When others are paralyzed by it, you must learn to channel it. This is how you transform a potential weakness into an unstoppable force. When I stood before the armies of Europe, facing coalitions that outnumbered us, did I feel fear? Of course. But I used that fear to sharpen my planning, heighten my awareness, fuel my determination. Fear became my servant, not my master. But let me ask you this. What fears are you running from that you should be running toward? What anxieties are crushing you that should be fueling you? The emperor doesn't eliminate fear. He transforms it into power. Most people waste enormous energy trying to eliminate fear. This is futile. The goal is not to be fearless. The goal is to make fear your ally, to transform it from a paralyzing force into a mobilizing one. I would study my fear before every campaign. What was it telling me? What weaknesses was it highlighting? What preparations had I overlooked? Fear became my most thorough general, pointing out every gap in my strategy, every weakness in my plan. Your fear is like a scout in enemy territory. It sees dangers you might miss, identifies weaknesses you might overlook, warns you of threats you might ignore. Learn to listen to it without being ruled by it. When I felt fear before a decisive battle, I didn't suppress it. I questioned it. What exactly am I afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? How can I prepare for it? This transformed fear from an emotional reaction into a strategic advantage. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It is the mastery of it. The great secret of power is not that emperors don't feel fear. It's that they've learned to use it as fuel for action, rather than a signal for retreat. Most fail because they see fear as a stop sign when they should see it as a spotlight, highlighting what needs attention, what needs preparation, what needs mastery. Your fear can be your greatest teacher if you have the courage to study its lessons. Your relationship with fear must become like that of a rider to a powerful horse, respecting its strength while directing its energy. Neither ignoring it nor being controlled by it, but channeling it toward your chosen destination. When I planned the crossing of the Alps, a feat many thought impossible, fear showed me every potential disaster. Instead of being paralyzed, I used this awareness to create the most thorough preparation possible. This is how you turn fear into triumph. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those who can transform their fears into focused action. Who can use anxiety as ammunition? Who can turn terror into technique? This is the alchemy of true leadership. Make fear your fuel. Transform anxiety into action. Channel terror into triumph. This is how empires are built. This is how legends are born. This is how history remembers your name. Listen carefully, for this is a truth that separates emperors from subjects. Rules are not chains that bind you. They are tools that serve you. The greatest power lies not in following rules, but in knowing which ones to break, when to break them, and how to create new ones that serve your empire. Here's what most people don't understand. Every rule, every convention, every way things are done was created by someone no smarter than you, no more powerful than you can become. The emperor doesn't wait for permission to reshape reality. He creates new order. When I reorganized France's legal system, I didn't ask for permission. When I reformed education, I didn't follow tradition. When I reshaped Europe's map, I didn't adhere to ancient boundaries. I broke rules that didn't serve progress and created new ones that did. But let me ask you this. How many rules are you following simply because they exist? How many limitations have you accepted without questioning? The difference between the emperor and the masses lies in their relationship with rules. One creates, the other complies. Most people see rules as absolute barriers. This is the thinking of slaves. Rules are like the terrain on a battlefield, obstacles, to be analyzed, circumvented, or transformed according to your strategic needs. I didn't become emperor by following the rules of monarchy. I created new rules, new traditions, new ways of thinking about power and legitimacy. This isn't rebellion for its own sake. It's strategic reconstruction of reality to serve your vision. Your relationship with rules must be like that of a sculptor with clay, seeing them as material to be shaped, not barriers to be feared. Every rule is an opportunity to either leverage power or demonstrate it by creating something new. When I created the continental system, many said it violated international norms. Of course it did. That was the point. New empires aren't built by following old rules. They're built by creating new ones that serve your strategic objectives. Remember, conformity is the jailer of opportunity. Every time you blindly follow a rule that doesn't serve your empire's growth, you surrender power to those who created that rule. The emperor evaluates rules based on their utility, not their antiquity. Most fail because they play by rules designed to keep them subordinate. They never question who created these rules, why they exist, or whom they truly serve. This is the mindset of subjects, not sovereigns. Your strategic thinking must be like a general surveying a battlefield, seeing rules as features of the terrain to be used or changed, not as unbreakable laws of nature. Your relationship with convention must be purely utilitarian. When I reformed France's educational system, I broke centuries of tradition. Why? Because old rules served old purposes. New empires require new frameworks, new systems, new rules that align with their vision of the future. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those who can see rules for what they are. Human constructions that can be deconstructed and reconstructed. Who understand that true power lies not in following rules, but in knowing which ones to break and which ones to create. Break rules that limit your empire's growth. Create rules that serve your vision, transform limitations into opportunities. This is how empires are built. This is how history is written. This is how the world is reshaped. Power is never built in isolation. Even emperors need alliances, but here's the crucial difference. They choose their allies like they choose their weapons, with cold calculation and clear purpose. Every alliance is a means to an end, not an end in itself. Here's what most people don't understand. Alliances are not friendships. They are strategic arrangements that serve a purpose. When that purpose is fulfilled, they must either be transformed or transcended. The emperor sees allies as stepping stones, not permanent foundations. When I married Josephine, it was an alliance that opened doors to French high society. When I married Marie-Louise, it was an alliance that legitimized my empire. Each served its purpose in its time. This is how you must think about every partnership. But let me ask you this. How many of your current alliances still serve your empire's growth? How many have become chains rather than wings? The difference between the emperor and the amateur lies in knowing when to forge alliances and when to forge ahead alone. Most people cling to alliances out of habit or sentiment. This is weakness. Every alliance must be constantly evaluated for its strategic value. The moment it stops serving your empire's growth is the moment it must be reconsidered. I allied with nations when it served France's interests, and I waged war against them when circumstances changed. This wasn't betrayal, it was strategy. The emperor's only permanent alliance is with his vision. Everything else is tactical. Your alliances must be like military campaigns, planned with precision, executed with purpose, and concluded when objectives are met. Never allow sentiment to override strategy. Never let loyalty to allies become chains that bind your empire's growth. When I needed Russia's support, I courted it. When I needed Austria's legitimacy, I secured it. But I never forgot that these were means to an end, tools to be used in the service of a greater vision. This is how you must view every partnership. Remember, the most dangerous alliance is one you've outgrown but continue to maintain. It becomes like a garrison that drains resources while providing no strategic advantage. The emperor knows when to build alliances and when to build beyond them. Most fail because they become emotionally attached to their alliances. They let relationships dictate strategy instead of letting strategy dictate relationships. This is the thinking of courtiers, not emperors. Your approach to alliances must be like a general's approach to terrain. Use it when it serves you, bypass it when it doesn't. Never let any partnership become so essential that you cannot advance without it. When I needed the support of the old nobility, I courted it. When I had built enough power of my own, I created a new nobility. This is the pattern you must follow. Use alliances to build power, then use power to build independence. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those who can build alliances without becoming dependent on them, who can use partnerships without being used by them, who can maintain relationships while maintaining independence. Build your alliances with purpose. Use them with precision. Outgrow them without hesitation. This is how empires are built. This is how power is maintained. This is how history is written. In the realm of power, there is one advantage that cannot be stolen, copied, or neutralized: the speed at which you learn. I conquered Europe not just through force of arms, but through superior learning. While others repeated their strategies, I evolved mine. Here's what most people don't understand. Knowledge isn't just power, it's the foundation of power. The speed at which you can learn, adapt, and implement new strategies determines the speed at which you can dominate. In the game of power, the fastest learner wins. When I studied artillery at Brienne, I didn't just learn the current tactics, I devised new ones. When I faced armies in Italy, I didn't just apply old strategies, I created new ones. Every battle, every campaign, every victory was a lesson I absorbed and transformed. But let me ask you this: how quickly do you learn from your experiences? How rapidly do you adapt your strategies? The difference between the emperor and the ordinary lies not in their access to information, but in their speed of implementation. Most people treat learning as a casual pursuit. This is the thinking of amateurs. The emperor treats learning as a weapon of war, something to be wielded with precision, developed with intensity, and deployed with devastating effect. I would spend hours interrogating prisoners about their army's tactics. I would devour books on military strategy. I would analyze every battle, won or lost, for lessons that could be applied. This wasn't mere curiosity, it was strategic necessity. Your mind must become like a military intelligence operation, constantly gathering information, analyzing patterns, identifying opportunities. Every experience, every failure, every success must be transformed into tactical knowledge. When others relied on traditional warfare, I developed new methods of artillery deployment. When they moved slowly with supplies, I created the core system for faster movement. Every innovation came from learning faster than my opponents could adapt. Remember, in the game of power, it's not just what you know, it's how quickly you can learn and adapt. The emperor who learns fastest sets the pace that others must follow. By the time they learn your current strategy, you should be executing your next one. Most fail because they stop learning once they achieve some success. They become comfortable with their current level of knowledge. This is death. The moment you stop learning is the moment you start dying. Your learning must be like a military campaign, aggressive, purposeful, relentless. Your study must be like reconnaissance, constant, thorough, strategic. Your adaptation must be like a lightning strike, swift, decisive, overwhelming. When I faced new situations, the desert warfare of Egypt, the winter campaigns of Russia, I didn't rely solely on what I knew. I learned rapidly, adapted continuously, evolved constantly. This is how you turn challenges into advantages. Here's the truth about power. It flows to those who can learn and adapt faster than their competitors. Who can absorb lessons more quickly than others can teach them? Who can evolve their strategies faster than others can copy them? Make learning your primary weapon. Transform experience into expertise. Convert knowledge into power. This is how empires are built. This is how dominance is maintained. This is how history remembers. Of all the weapons in an emperor's arsenal, none is more potent than strategic silence. I conquered as much through what I didn't say as through what I did. The masses chatter. The emperor calculates in silence. Here's what most people don't understand. Silence is not the absence of power. It is power concentrated. Every word you don't speak is a weapon you haven't revealed, a strategy you haven't disclosed, an advantage you've maintained. When I planned my most decisive campaigns, I kept my counsels small and my true intentions smaller. Let others boast of their plans. The emperor knows that silence creates the space in which power moves most effectively. But let me ask you this. How much power do you surrender through needless speech? How many advantages do you sacrifice through unnecessary disclosure? The difference between the emperor and the amateur often lies in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Most people feel compelled to fill every silence, to reveal every thought, to voice every plan. This is weakness. Strategic silence is like the void before a lightning strike, pregnant with power, heavy with potential. I would often sit silently in council meetings, watching my generals debate, revealing their thoughts, their fears, their ambitions. While they spoke, I learned. While they revealed, I calculated. This is the power of strategic silence. Your silence must become like your royal guard, protecting your most valuable assets, your most crucial strategies, your most important plans. Let others guess at your intentions while you observe their revelations. When everyone expected me to attack one way, I remained silent and struck another. When they thought they knew my plans, my silence preserved my true strategy. This uncertainty, this mystery, became a weapon more powerful than any army. Remember, every word you speak is a piece of intelligence you give away. Every plan you reveal is an advantage you surrender. Every thought you voice is a weapon you hand to potential opponents. The emperor knows the value of strategic silence. Most fail because they cannot bear the pressure of silence. They feel compelled to explain, to justify, to reveal. This compulsion becomes their weakness, their vulnerability, their path to defeat. Your silence must become like a castle wall, protecting your strategic advantages, your tactical innovations, your true intentions. Let others exhaust themselves with speculation, while you maintain your power through calculated restraint. When I negotiated with other rulers, I often said less than they expected. This silence made them uncomfortable, made them talk more, reveal more. In their rush to fill the silence, they gave away their positions, their fears, their desires. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those who can maintain strategic silence, who can keep their counsel while others reveal theirs, who can use silence as both shield and sword in the game of power. Say little, reveal less. Let them wonder. This is how empires are built. This is how advantage is maintained. This is how history is written. The true measure of an emperor is not how he handles victory, but how he transforms defeat into future triumph. Every setback is merely information. Every defeat simply feedback. Every failure a foundation for future victory, if you know how to use them. Here's what most people don't understand. Setbacks are not endings. They are beginnings. They are not defeats. They are data. The emperor doesn't experience failure. He experiences strategic intelligence gathering about what doesn't work. When I was forced to retreat from Russia, I didn't see it as defeat. I saw it as intelligence about winter warfare, about extended supply lines, about the limits of even the greatest army. Every loss became a lesson, every setback a strategy. But let me ask you this. How do you view your setbacks? As final verdicts or as first drafts? As tombstones or as training grounds? The difference between the emperor and the ordinary lies not in their number of setbacks, but in what they create from them. Most people let setbacks define them. This is weakness. The emperor lets setbacks refine him. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity. Every resistance becomes intelligence. Every defeat becomes data for future victory. I studied my failures with the same intensity others studied their successes. Why? Because failure is a better teacher than triumph if you have the courage to take its lessons. Each setback is a gift, wrapped in pain, perhaps, but filled with power. Your setbacks must become like your war council, teaching you where your strategies need refinement, where your tactics need revision, where your approach needs reinvention. Don't waste your failures by merely experiencing them. Study them. When I lost battles, I didn't lose confidence. I gained intelligence. When plans failed, I didn't lose heart. I gained insight. This is how you turn setbacks into strategy, by refusing to see them as anything less than strategic intelligence. Remember, the path to power never runs straight. It is a series of advances and strategic retreats, of victories and instructive defeats. The emperor knows that what matters is not the setback itself, but the strategy you build from it. Most fail because they let setbacks stop them instead of teach them. They see defeat as an end rather than a beginning. This is the thinking of amateurs, not emperors. Every setback is raw material for future triumph. Your relationship with failure must become like that of a scientist with experimental data, analyzing it dispassionately, extracting its lessons methodically, using its intelligence strategically. This is how defeats become the foundation of victories. When I was imprisoned on Elba, I didn't see captivity. I saw preparation time. When I faced coalition armies, I didn't see overwhelming odds. I saw opportunities to innovate tactics. This is how you transform setbacks into strategic advantages. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those who can transform defeats into data, setbacks into strategies, failures into foundations for future success. Who can take what seems like an ending and turn it into a beginning, reposition, reinvent, reclaim. This is how empires are built. This is how defeats become victories. This is how history is written. Listen carefully, for I am about to share with you a truth that has toppled more empires than any army. Complacency kills kings. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you begin to fall. Power must be maintained with the same ferocity with which it was gained. Here's what most people don't understand. Achievement is not a destination. It's a constant state of warfare. The emperor who thinks he can rest on his laurels soon finds himself resting in exile. Stay hungry, stay lethal, stay in motion. When I became emperor, I didn't stop studying military strategy. When I conquered Europe, I didn't stop innovating tactics. When I achieved supreme power, I didn't stop preparing for challenges. The sword that stops being sharpened soon stops being feared. But let me ask you this. What victories have made you soft? What achievements have dulled your edge? The difference between maintaining power and losing it often lies in this single question. Are you still as hungry as you were when you had nothing? Most people let success soften them. This is the beginning of the end. The emperor knows that every achievement is not a finish line, but a new starting point, not a peak, but a plateau from which to spot the next summit. I would drill my imperial guard more rigorously after victories than before them. Why? Because success breeds complacency, and complacency breeds defeat. The time to sharpen your sword is when it's still wet with victory's blood. Your hunger must become like a sacred flame, never allowed to dim, never permitted to die. Your drive must become like your imperial standard, raised higher after every victory, not lowered in satisfaction. When others celebrated victories, I planned next campaigns. When they rested on achievements, I prepared for new challenges. When they grew comfortable, I grew more focused. This is how you maintain power, by never believing you've fully secured it. Remember, the same intensity that built your empire must be used to maintain it. The same dedication that won your victories must be used to protect them. The same hunger that drove you to power must be used to preserve it. Most fail because they think arrival is permanent. They believe achievement is a destination rather than a waypoint. This is the thinking that has destroyed more empires than any invasion ever could. Your relationship with success must be like that of a sculptor with marble, never fully satisfied, always seeing more possibility, constantly chiseling toward greater perfection. This is how you stay sharp when others grow dull. When I won a battle, my first thought was not of celebration, but of reinforcement. When I gained territory, my focus was not on enjoyment, but on fortification. This constant vigilance, this perpetual hunger, this is what separates lasting power from temporary success. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those who treat every victory not as a conclusion, but as a commencement, who see every achievement not as a peak, but as a plateau, who remain as hungry after success as they were before it. Stay hungry. Stay lethal. Stay in motion. This is how empires are maintained. This is how power is preserved. This is how legends endure. We have arrived at the most fundamental truth of power, the foundation upon which all empires are built or buried. In the end, nothing matters more than the strength of your will. Everything we've discussed, strategy, preparation, focus, learning, all of it serves one master, the imperial will to power. Here's what most people don't understand. Will is not just desire. It is destiny made manifest through relentless determination. It is not hoping, not wishing, not wanting. It is the absolute, unshakable commitment to bend reality to its vision. When I was a young artillery officer, it was not skill alone that raised me to emperor. It was will. When I faced the combined armies of Europe, it was not strategy alone that brought victory. It was will. The strength of your will determines the height of your throne. But let me ask you this. What is the true strength of your will when everything falls apart, when all strategies fail, when all allies desert you? What remains? This is when the emperor is revealed, when the true power of will shines brightest. Most people mistake enthusiasm for will, temporary motivation for imperial determination. This is weakness. True will is like the foundations of a fortress, unseen perhaps, but supporting everything above it, unshakable, immovable, eternal. I would sometimes stand alone in my tent before battle, feeling the weight of all Europe against me. In those moments, it was not my armies that sustained me, not my strategies that steadied me. It was the pure, burning force of will. Your will must become like the sun, constant, burning, life-giving to your empire and death-dealing to your opponents. It must be the first thing that rises in you each morning and the last thing that sets each night. When they imprisoned me on Elba, they thought they had broken my will. They didn't understand. Walls don't contain will. Oceans don't drown it. Armies don't defeat it. Will is the force that breaks chains, crosses oceans, conquers armies. Remember, everything in your empire flows from your will. Your strategies are merely its servants. Your achievements are merely its shadows. Your power is merely its reflection. Will is the foundation, the engine, the crown of all achievement. Most fail because they never develop this supreme strength of will. They rely on talent, on circumstance, on luck. But talent fades, circumstances change, luck turns. Will alone remains constant, will alone endures, will alone prevails. Your will must be like your imperial guard, the last line of defense, the final force, the ultimate determinant of victory or defeat. When all else fails, and there will be times when all else fails, will is what remains. Even in my final exile on St. Helena, my will remained unbroken. They could contain my body, but never my spirit, restrict my movements, but never my mind, limit my power, but never my will. This is the ultimate power, the power that cannot be taken, only surrendered. Here's the truth about power. It belongs to those whose will is strongest. Not the most talented, not the most fortunate, not the most prepared, though all these help, but those whose will stands like a fortress against all opposition. Build your will like you would build an empire. Strengthen it like you would strengthen an army. Guard it like you would guard a crown, for in the end this is what determines all, the strength of your will to power. And now, as we conclude this guidance, remember, you were not born to be common. You were born to command. Your will is your destiny. Let it be strong enough to shape history.